Okay, so there are a few levels of anonymization actions and the deletion of users, and how those are configured will kind of affect um, how your circulation statistics reporting might show up, or like your patron group reporting. It kind of brings up a side note about filtering current users based on status of deleted or not. So anyway, I'm just going to talk about these steps. Feel free to shoot in any questions, and I can always go into an environment to show you a screen as well. So the first thing really has nothing to do with getting rid of users. So if you're not ready to make the jump to deleting users, you may want to double check that you have the first two steps of anonymization activated, so that you are following best practices as far as privacy and data. So the first step is the patron links, and that's the one job that is actually called anonymization. And what it does is it removes the links to loan information, past fees, resource sharing requests, etc., so long as they are like no longer required for functional purposes. So this is nothing that would be outstanding, fines or fees. This would not be resource sharing requests that are still open or pending, lost loans, etc. It's only those that are closed, completed, etc. And that um, that job is one that basically runs weekly, I believe, but it has to be set to active. And that is under configuration, fulfillment, and then fulfillment jobs configuration and anonymization. Um, so if we do want to go in there and look at it, might as well. Um, it's pretty simple, except for making the choices about which fulfillment actions you want to anonymize. Um, I would love to hear any wisdom anyone has on like why you wouldn't just anonymize all of it. Um, but we can take a look at the exact wording, and perhaps someone will have thoughts. So configuration, fulfillment, fulfillment jobs configuration, which is general. I was like, so many in this one. All right, so you've got several in here. So you'll want to scroll down halfway to the anonymization job. And so it's got 8 different things that you can anonymize. The addition of these notes, I believe, was a February 2023 feature release. It used to just be these 4. There's also kind of information on what each of these is over on the right. So loans, fines and fees, requests, and resource sharing requests. And then you can schedule it. So it's daily, weekly, or monthly, it looks like. So this is one. Kirsty, I know that Seattle has anonymization turned on. Would you care to kind of share how you decided to configure this?
Yeah.
It's probably been a while getting into C.
It has. In general, we're sort of doing 2 different categories of anonymization. We have things that cost more. We don't anonymize for 6 months. And the stuff that costs more is usually it's equipment that when it comes back, you know, people have to look over it, and sometimes it can be a while before we figure out, oh, hey, this thing that got returned is actually broken or whatever. So yeah, so there are certain categories of things in our system where we anonymize after 6 months, but then there are other categories of things like routine loans, some reserves that we anonymize on a shorter schedule.
And you set all of those under these different rules categories, and
Yes.
then the job still runs on everything, but according to whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Do you want to
Yeah, we could
give
take
me
a
a
look
minute
at
to
yours too, since
pull it up? Give hold on. Okay, so
I think I can get there pretty quick.
Oh, okay, good.
So, loans, fines and fees, and then resource sharing requests, and running it daily. So loan anonymization, looks like there's a fair amount of customization that is in here. So this kind of shows you, if you've got different departments who want different things to happen. It's clearly very specialized. And I'm guessing it's location and material type and all kinds of stuff.
Pretty much location.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't use the item policy codes, but I think if you do use item policy codes, you can include that in the rule.
Cool. And then on fines and fees, you guys have gone with default, and it looks like, well, now I'd have to look it up, but I'm guessing if there is a fine or fee, that it's not anonymized unless it's paid.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it won't anonymize anything that has outstanding money.
Mm-hmm. And then resource sharing requests, also
We don't use
the
that.
default.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter, but I guess if like something accidentally got attached to a user, then at least it would go away and not be weird.
And the reason we don't anonymize requests is because that function was added later, and I didn't even remember that it existed until now.
So Bobby asks, you could have two anonymized item loan jobs. So you can only have one job, but you can have multiple rules. So when the job runs, it will operate two different ways.
And I think when the job runs, I think it reads the rules starting at the top of the table and going to the bottom.
In typical Alma fashion.
Yeah.
So if a rule applies to something in the first if a user applies to the first rule, then it gets caught. Second rule gets caught, and then everybody else is going to go to default. Yes, so that is the anonymization job. As we can see from Seattle, the rules they have are set anywhere from 2 days, 7 days, 14 days to 6 months. I'm sure, like depending on your own workflows, you could make that call yourselves. I must say,
Could you open up one of those and show it what the rule looks like?
Oh, yeah. So all of these were set, the input parameters were set for library equals and then days since loan. And since these are loan rules, the input parameters, I'm sure, are limited to parameters that apply to the loan, not to the users. So you don't
Yes.
have to worry about user group. It's going to be location. Well, it might be user group. I'll try not to. So days since, days since user expiry. So you could only like anonymize expired folks, library location, number of loans. So if you wanted to keep the last 5 loans, and there is user group. So the one random thing that I decided to make the example is in fact the thing that's in there. And then you've got, I'm sure, equal to and what and
In a
yeah.
list, maybe.
So greater than, equal to, does not equal, and then yeah. So cascading options. Yeah, I would say even if you're never gonna, especially if you're never gonna purge users, anonymizing stuff is important. As far as I know, because I did look this up, Abby asked, are there regulations about setting these kinds of policies? So, former institution that I worked for was not like kept all records for all time. And I was like, excuse me, what? Because the public library, of course, as soon as an item is returned, unless it is returned in damaged mode, it was cut, the link was cut. There was no record. So I looked up whether there were any state laws that would mandate patron privacy, and I did not find any. I think if you had stakeholders who were concerned about anonymizing, like they didn't want to do it, you could cite like ALA patron privacy um, concerns. As far as like regulations about college data, yeah, I don't think, because when I went and looked, like there was nothing in like FERPA protections about keeping library records, like and that. So if anyone,
Yeah, there's some Washington State records retention stuff, but all of the stuff with libraries basically boils down to keep it as long as you need it to do your work. Um, I I honestly, like, my personal preference is to lean towards keeping the information for as short a period of time as possible. But that's also because I became a librarian at the point in time when we were dealing with, um,
Patriot Act.
yeah, thank you.
I was a student at that time, so I remember being very concerned from my like idealistic mass communication studies perspective. Um, yeah, and I think there's kind of a miscorrelation between records retention and like personalized information. Records retention really applies to the institution and its operations. And like, yes, a library as part of a college needs to be keeping records of the fines and fees it charges and the money that it spends. But that does not extend to who, like which student is paying a fine. Um,
Or
so
or wanting to know that student X or Professor Y checked out
checked out.
these books 15 years ago. Like that. Let's
Mm-hmm.
not do that.
Yeah. So, and anonymization. So, we'll kind of keep going. So, one of the other things in anonymization is if you anonymize an additional fulfillment action. So, if Kirsty goes back in and adds the anonymize requests. The next time the job runs, any requests that were still linked to users that had not yet been anonymized would then go in and retroactively be anonymized. So kind of interesting. So that's the anonymization rule. And I would just really recommend, if you haven't had the conversation with your library dean or faculty or other stakeholders, that be something you look into. The next part is letter retention. So the default is that letters sent to users are retained indefinitely. And although the job does run weekly, if your letter retention period is not set, it doesn't actually take them off. So this one is in general configuration and oh, and I already forgot. And letters configuration. And it's kind of the screen that we skip over right at the beginning when we're going into like edit the content of the letters. So retention period of 1 day. So if these letters get sent to a user, they are getting removed right away in Seattle. These ones that are blank, these will not be removed by default. So that's something you can choose on a letter by letter basis. If you wanted to go in and you're like, you know what, we're going to set all the anonymization at 6 months. So we're also going to remove all letters at 6 months, because at that point you're looking at, statistical information, not individual level information anyway. You could do
Real
that.
quick, Carly, one of the important things to remember here is that the letters configuration, these aren't just letters related to patron borrowing. There are also some letters related to acquisitions in here. Like there's a POL line cancellation letter, claim letter,
Yeah.
renewal letter, order
So
list.
we've got one, full overdue and lost. You guys keep that on for a year so you can review it, I'm sure.
No, I think we do it mostly as a, like, we want proof that we sent.
Sent it. Yeah. I'm trying to find the. Yeah, so here's the PO line cancellation letters. So they're not all patron facing letters. Some are the other ones that get moved around the system to notify. So if you did just want to look at the patron facing ones, you can limit to patron facing. And then you can set those as you see appropriate. So yeah, so those are the first two things. And then the letters purge with retention. So that is not under configuration, but it's admin and what did it say was? And manage. Why did they I just love it when it's old. What? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, from admin, manage jobs and set. Monitor job. Okay, I was skipping lines. So scheduled. And you can do, I think it's gotta be under what do we think? Fulfillment?
Maybe?
Really wish you could search this one.
I mean, yeah, the best you can do is bump up
Page
the
search.
display to the
Okay, letters
maximum number and
purge.
Control F.
Yeah. Let's see, so we can find out which number it is. So number 81, the second to last. So it is active here. You can look at job history, and I must not have permissions to mess with, which is fine. Oh, man. So yeah, it should be active. And you can, I think, look at the job history, but it should run every week, as it does say in the documentation. So that's the first two steps. That does not involve getting rid of any users, and won't kind of add another layer to any analytics that you're doing. Now, purging users. This is a kind of a much bigger topic. The hows and the whens will have to be determined by your own institution. It looks like we've got quite a few more people. I'm going to share the link again. Um, so again, there's a couple layers to how a purging user job needs to be done. Some things you want to know. It will only run, the automatic job will only run on users that have a purge date in their record. When you schedule the job to run, you can limit it to a single user record type or group, or neither. You can also set the waive limit. So if you want to waive any fees under $5, and it will not delete any users that do have outstanding loans or balances due. So if the fine is $3, it will waive it. It will no longer have a balance due. It will purge the user. If the fine is $6 and the limit's at $5, there will be an outstanding balance due. It will not get deleted. Some caveats. Purge dates come in with your SIS load. So if those have not been configured in the script, your users might not have purge dates. Those of you who I've seen purge dates, some are the day of expiration, some's the day after expiration, some are a year after expiration. It kind of varies. So you might want to check on that. The other thing is that it will run that delete user based on the delete user policy, which is where you configure the level of statistical data retention. So this is kind of where you get into why this matters to circulation. So configuring user deletion is under configuration, user management, configuration, user management, general, and delete user policy. Here, it gives you the 4 options, which I have pasted the Alma documentation in here, except it didn't. There, that's better. And it is this keep statistics and remove primary ID. That is the setting that is recommended. This is another one where if you change the policy to a more restrictive or like more deletey, where you're gonna get if you changed it from keep statistics and primary ID to just keep statistics or to fully remove, a warning box would pop up and say, are you sure more information is going to be deleted on the next job? Or I guess vice versa. No, keep statistics is anyway. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. The levels. So this last one, it looks like they've changed the order to put the recommended one last, so it really kind of like stands out. So I don't see a significant reason to not just use the recommended. That one does do the most to protect user privacy, especially since the primary ID that we use in the system is the state CTC user ID, which is something that is kept in the state system for I don't know how long. So yeah, so the first part of purging users is making sure that your delete user policy is set at the level you want it to be. Then if it's running automatically and you have purge dates in there, you're kind of set to go. However, if you don't have purge dates already attached to users, or you're not sure like what's going on with your purge dates, like maybe purge date is the same day as expiration, but you'd rather not talk to IT about changing the script. You just want to get rid of anyone who has a purge date more than a year in the past, instead of like only one term in the past. You can bulk change or apply purge dates to a set of users by using analytics. So I'm gonna get out of here. Get out of here. So you'll create a set, a report, an analysis in analytics using the user's subject area. And so long as the first column is primary ID or username, then you can add whatever other columns you want in order to filter that report for any users that you know you want to like capture and add or edit a purge date to. You can then run a job of update notify users or sorry, I skipped, create an itemized set based on analytics and then run the job. I think you can run the job and then choose analytics too, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, when you do the update notify users job, I'm going to go in here. And this is going to take forever. There are lots and lots of, oh, that might be one we have to do straight from sets. Does anyone remember? No, I think we can do it from here. Yep, gotta go do it from sets. So do you happen to know if you've got a user set? Yeah, there's a user set.
Should be somewhere.
Yeah, so you can then run a job. Logical logic. Let's see if we can run it.
There's one down there with patrons with no purge date.
Ah, okay. So then why is it not?
You have to go into admin.
Yeah, and I went to
You start with the
run a job.
and you pick the
Monday's so
job you want
hard.
to run.
And it's the
Right?
first one when you go to the right page. So when you choose this job, you then choose your set. And so we've got no expiry date. And we click next, and it will then give you all the task parameters. And if you're just adding purge date, you just check this box and you add the purge date that you want. You can add it unconditionally or only if the field is empty. And that way you know that you've got users with this purge date, and now you can run the um, purge users.
And, and one of the things I've found out
That's not the right one.
from doing some item batch updates, if you have a situation where you tell Alma only do this if there isn't already something in the field, like only make this change if the field is empty. If Alma does run across anything with something in the field as part of the report, it will give you a list of these are all of the records that I couldn't change, and here's what was in the field
Hmm.
that made me not be able to change it.
Which is a probably long but useful report
Yes.
potentially. So yeah, so here's the user audit purge with retention. It's under scheduled jobs, unmonitored jobs, and it just goes weekly. And so this, if you change people's expiration or purge date, the automatic job will run and purge those users. But if none of your users have purge dates,
Wait,
this is not.
do
Yeah,
we have that actually scheduled?
it says it is scheduled every Friday at 7 p.m. As
What?
um,
I do not remember turning that thing on.
it's not, doesn't seem to be processing anything.
I need to look into this.
So we can also check
Yeah.
the
I don't want it running weekly.
documentation uh and see what it says about that job. Um
Because I'm used to doing it manually.
yeah. So it's interesting that so this is the user audit purge with retention. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong job. I love how they
Yeah, what does this job
repeat
do?
deletes history records that are older than the value of the retention period.
Oh, okay.
So related
So
potentially, but it's not a purge of users. It's a purge of
the
rec.
information in the history tab.
Yeah. Which is another one. This is a whole nother rabbit hole of one you could set up. Since last May, we had all the stupid history notes that popped up with the you know, user role updated number nonsense.
And it's
Um,
still going on. Like it's no longer updating the profile notes, but now every single day it's
it's still
it's deleting deleting permissions and adding the same exact permissions back for everybody.
oi, so weird.
But yeah, there's been some valid complaints on Alma L.
Um, so oh, we didn't hold on. Okay, so that audit user audit retention period, that's the audit trail record. Um, and then you can set that based on configuring other settings. So it's running weekly, but your retention periods must be set such that it's not getting deleted.
Yeah, I'm guessing that this is one of those somewhat newer parameters that when they introduced it, the default was to basically keep everything forever. And
So unless
maybe
you
I
go
don't
in and
know.
do it, where's it? Where would it be at? Config, user management, general. Was that right? Yeah, other setting, mapping tables.
I think the word audit was in there. Oh, user 30 line 34, user audit retention
Retention period. So yeah, there is the default is to keep everything. So unless you've gone in and changed this, that job we just found in monitoring job is not going to do anything. So back to the actual topic of purging users. When you run the job, it is under run a job and it is manual. Nope.
Oh no, it's
No.
in a
Where is it at?
completely different place.
Of course it
I
is.
think right. You go under fulfillment, I think. And no, maybe it's admin.
Oh,
Oh,
purge
admin.
user
That's it.
records.
Purge user.
Admin, user management, purge user records. That's right. Because it's under admin permissions. So like other people can't even see that. So you do have your history of purged users. Fantastic. And then you can add a job. And when you add this job, you can select here, the wave threshold. So, and that is how you can make sure by using that analytics report to add a purge date to a set that you are actually purging only the people. So like if, number of days after purge date and you put 365, it's only going to purge people who have a purge date in their record and that purge date is a year ago. Now, if you've gone in and done the work to add purge dates, you've looked at your expiry dates, you've made some decisions on like the consistency, like your standard that you're going to keep, then you could run this job. I don't know, what do you run it quarterly, Kirsty?
I was running it every quarter, but after hearing from some things that Will Parnell, I think I'm gonna do it just once a year. Because one of the things that Will found out was if you purge the user records more frequently, somebody might take classes and then they leave and then they come back like a quarter or two later, and anything that they saved in their Primo account is now gone.
Mm.
And hold on, Bobby had a question in the chat about
Okay,
can you not purge anyone with a specific kind of note? And the answer is, why would Ex Libris let you do something easy? there's kind of a workaround where you could create a special user group
Yeah, so you can,
and and then you can run a report of everybody who has that particular kind of note. You can assign that special user group doing a batch job, and then you can run the purge job based on specific user groups.
but then you'd
And then you have
be
to change
struggling
the
to put
user
them
groups back.
back in the original user group. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
like so you have to be really, really careful. Like if
very
you
intentional.
yeah, if some of the patrons with those notes are students, then you want to only do the students.
Well,
And
and
then
Amy has
the
another
faculty can send them.
recommendation is if you ran an analytics report and got users with that kind of note and then ran an update users job and like removed the purge date
Oh, that's a
um,
great idea too.
from those patron records, then they wouldn't be getting purged.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
If you that's a great idea. If you set up something like that, you'll want to also set up some way of keeping track of user records where you've removed the purge date, but those patrons no longer have the notes.
yeah, it'd be a little interesting to kind of maintain that, like the number of steps. Um, but
Yeah,
I
oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just saying the special user group thing, um, from a few people that I've worked with on this, it seems like that was a pretty common practice, to make sure that only the users that you wanted to be purged were getting purged. And so like I was working with Amanda at Big Bend and we're like, what is this delete users group and why is there anybody in it? Like theoretically, if you moved someone to that user group, why weren't they just already purged? Like that user group should be empty if you're using it as
Yeah,
it's intended.
yeah,
But yeah, and I think doing um an annual purge is probably completely sufficient. Preparing for that annual purge, if you haven't done it for a while, um, might take a bit of thinking and configuration, so that you are purging who you want to purge. So, um, yeah. So, where'd my so I might have missed some of those details in here. Um, oh, the math for number of days after purge date. If you don't put anything, it will delete, it will purge everybody who has a purge date prior to the day you're running the job. If you put any kind of number in there, then you're saying even if they have a purge date, if it's, like if that purge date's only 5 days past, don't purge them. Um, so yeah, if purge dates are coming in with your SIS load, um, but they're set for like the day after a student's expiration date, and let's say you're doing the annual purge, but you're doing it in June, but maybe you have a student who just started in spring, their expiration date is June 15th, their purge date is June 16th, and you don't want to purge because they could very well come back in the fall or even for like the second, short-term summer thing. You might want to go ahead and do 365 days after the purge date. And that way, um, you're not purging students who have just started. But again, that's going to be dependent on um, how your IT script constructs the user record coming in. So you might want to take a look at some standard student user records. Or if you're like, I don't really know, I can look at the raw record load for you too on for most of your institutions, and we can see kind of like what's going on there. Some of them are actually detailed enough that student expiration and purge dates are closer to like end of terms, whereas faculty and staff purge dates are set to like a year from the end of the term. Some are set like a year from the day of the load, which is kind of annoying because then literally every single day um the expiration date moves out one day. Um let's not talk about my dream of a standardized script for everybody. Because it really makes no sense to change people's expiration dates every single day. So anyway, so I started all of this by saying this can potentially affect circulation analytics. So one of the things that um, if you are running a purge or have ran a purge recently, that you may want to take in consideration is whether or not to filter um, data based on uh, deleted records or not, like loan borrower details status deleted. So if you're running maybe, you know, what are students who are currently enrolled yeah, checking out, I don't, yeah, but you've got yeah, hopefully if people are deleted now, the likelihood that they weren't already expired and weren't checking things out, but it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. um I think the other thing is making sure that when you, I gotta double check the dashboard. iPads no longer collects the total number of patrons, but I think that the old iPad's dashboard where it said like, what are your current number of patrons? I don't think it was filtered for deleted. Um, and if you weren't setting up that anonymization to get rid of primary ID number, it probably was counting all primary IDs that were still in the system, which may have included deleted people. Anyway, fun analytics and how analytics has changed, as well as the options for managing users since the beginning of analytics. So anyway, are there any like other kind of questions or thoughts? This is recorded. I will go ahead and take the notes from chat since we've got a good discussion on, you know, how often and some, you know, the tip on how to not delete people with a certain note. Um, and then this will be available in our open call folder. Um, so, um, yeah. Okay. I'm gonna stop